Welcome to Expats Listen with Ryan and Liz, the podcast where we talk about moving and living abroad, the parts that we planned and the parts that we definitely did not plan.
I'm Ryan. I'm a South African living in Portugal.
And I'm Liz, an American also living in Portugal.
So Liz, what are we going to talk about today?
Today is a bit of a fun one. We are talking about planning the move abroad and the different ways that we've seen people go through this process. And I've made up some personas to keep it fun. And don't ask me why, but I chose all old lady names. I just went with it.
I love an older lady. I happen to have chosen one myself. Liz is a strong 4 months older than me. So,
not even 4 months.
Well, it just shows that the older the berry, the sweeter the juice. So let's get cracking, Liz.
All right. Well, first up, we have Meticulous Mary. So this person plans every single detail of their move. They learned the language. They know the local holidays. They've meticulously researched every aspect of life that they can possibly think of before even visiting this country. And when they do decide to visit, they dip a toe and come for a long weekend and then a week and then a month before they actually make the move.
Yeah, those meticulous Marys are really the ones that you want to look out for because they've done so much research. And I think when they land, they are ready to go. And I think that it's always going to be a fascinating thing to watch them in action because they might be in the middle of a place that they've never been before and they're able to actually tell you all the secrets of like where we should go and what we should do. And I always think it's really interesting to see.
Yeah, I feel like the Meticulous Mary often gives you a lot of background that sometimes locals don't even know of the history of a place, or this was actually turned over 3 times or something like that. But let's go through the good, the bad, and the ugly. What do you think?
Yeah, let's check it out.
Okay, so the good is this Meticulous Mary knows everything about where to live in. I think that's amazing. Learning the language and the customs before you go, gold stars all around. This is wonderful. We love to see it. It's definitely going to make integration so much easier.
Is it going to make integration that much easier? I'm only asking because so much of what makes integration hard is the number of crazy things that are completely unexpected.
Yeah, that's exactly where we're getting into the bad, which the bad is as much as you research, there are going to be surprises. And a big part of expat life is rolling with the punches when they come. And if you think that you know what all of those punches are going to be in advance, when an unexpected one comes, and it will, you're probably going to be more shaken than others who didn't do that much research.
Yeah, I'm glad you said that because I think that's the thing is that when you've got someone who's that carefully planned and prepared, as you say, I think it's really a wonderful thing because they're informed in what it is that they're getting involved in. And I think that's much more of an advantageous place to be when you're starting a new life in a new place. But then I think that it's also linked to just being a human being where, I don't know, it just feels like, they've got that classic cliche, man plans and God laughs kind of thing. And I think that's such a common thing to happen in so many areas of life. And I don't want it to sound as if I'm saying that planning isn't a good idea. I'm just saying that even if you do plan to that extent, that nasty surprise is part of the experience, I guess.
Yeah. And now onto the ugly. I think for someone who's very meticulous and overplanned every single detail of a move, they often feel as though if they don't actually love living there, they're a failure. And they won't want to admit that they've failed. So they might stay and be unhappy for years because they can't admit that everything that they did and all of the planning and the years that they took to get here, maybe it wasn't actually a good fit. Maybe they were wrong. And really, I just want to say, don't do this to yourself. It truly doesn't matter how much you think you know about a place. You will never know how that place will feel until you're there. And if you don't give yourself that grace to be surprised, then I think you're really doing yourself a disservice. Even though you've done all of that planning, I think you need to give yourself the out and give yourself the ability to change your mind.
Yeah, I think so many people carry that perspective of if you fail to plan, you plan to fail. And therefore, they cannot give themselves that opportunity to say this hasn't worked out, because it's really a reflection on whether or not they prepared, or whether or not they tried hard enough, or whether or not they worked hard enough.
Exactly.
And it's such a difficult thing to watch people go through that, because as you say, life is just a different experience, man. Like, you need to go through so much of understanding that there are things that speak to your soul that you can't always quantify, and you can't always see, and you can't always immediately understand. And to put yourself in a situation where you're saying, oh, I've covered all the bases, so because all the bases have been covered, there's no reason for me to feel as though this isn't the right place for me to be. And to watch people go through that is really difficult, because usually these people, like you've said here for Meticulous Mary tends to spend so long in the place suffering before they eventually realize that this isn't for them and there's a better place for them. And tough to watch. But I think it's swings and roundabouts, I'm sure, like all of these are.
Exactly. That's, I think, the whole point of this is that there is no perfect persona, and there's good, bad, and ugly of every single one of them.
Can I throw this in there on the point of people hanging in there for unnecessarily long periods of time? I feel as though there's a part of me that has that, but not necessarily because I'm a meticulous Mary, but because I don't ever want to see myself as being someone who's failing. And so I hang in there in difficult situations where it's actually a much more sensible and legitimate and logical decision to actually leave and start again, or try something different, or learn something new. And I think that's a fascinating thing, because I don't think that it's necessarily linked directly just to meticulous Marys. I think it's for people like me who just flat out refuse to quit even when they're supposed to.
Yeah.
So next one.
All right. Next up is Spontaneous Susan. So this is the opposite of meticulous, because they plan nothing. And I have to say, this has been us in our move abroad in a lot of ways, that we just kind of showed up. We didn't really know much about Portugal or Portuguese culture before we arrived, and we kind of did everything on the fly.
Yeah, I think it's an understatement to say that's us. I think that is exactly who we are, because I think Liz and I have managed to build entire lives and livelihoods on just turning up and showing up at the most random places at the strangest times and having things just happen.
Yeah, so I would say for the good, having no expectations means that you will not be disappointed. It's a lot easier to roll with the punches. And I think it's easier to leave if it isn't working out, because you aren't so tied to the place. When you spontaneously arrived, you didn't spend years pouring your heart and soul into this move. So it should be easier to leave. And I think this is where, Ryan, you don't feel like a spontaneous Susan to me, because you do feel like it is a lot more difficult to leave.
I do. I think a big part of it is also looking at things. And in this situation, it's being an expat and expat life, but it's also in other areas of life where you have this idea of how things are supposed to be. And if you've spent a lot of time imagining what it's going to be like, you develop this big and deep idea of what that place is supposed to be. And then when you arrive there and you very quickly discover that it's not, it's very different. It's no indication that it's bad or anything, but it just isn't what you thought it was going to be. Sometimes the response there is something that goes a long way towards how you feel about the place and whether or not you feel like you can make this home.
Yeah.
And I think I definitely have that in me of having this expectation that I imagined what it was going to be like. I took into consideration all of these different things. And then you arrive there and maybe all of those things are true that you did imagine, but it doesn't feel the way that you thought it would feel. And then trying to get your brain around the fact that you need to now live a life that isn't what you thought it was going to be.
So the bad of the spontaneous persona is that you might miss out on things that could have really helped you. Like, for example, in Portugal, we only found out about the NHR, which is that non-habitual residence status, after we arrived. And we were so lucky to have discovered it in time to apply for it and get all of the paperwork in for that. But really, if we didn't just luckily talk to someone who mentioned it, we never would have known. And I think that this is a problem with that spontaneity, that you really do rely on luck a lot of the time to figure out what's going on and to make sure that you've got everything sorted.
Yeah, so I think that's a big one, because it's not just the foundational information that you might not have gotten before arriving to a new place to live. That's certainly one thing, but I think it's a consistent thing where every single week, I reckon, we discover something new that's fundamental to how we're living our lives, and we had no idea about it. And we're very grateful, of course, to have people around us who share that information, and we're part of some bigger expat WhatsApp and Facebook groups who share that info. But being spontaneous does have its ups and its downs are often not having that information because you didn't do that research, or not being able to monitor what's going on around the world while you're there, and things can change so quickly for people who are living in that situation. So absolutely.
Yeah. And I would say that the ugly in this persona is kind of an extreme version of the bad, right? Where logistics can really bite you in the butt if you don't plan in advance. And legal stuff, you really need to make sure that you do plan and that you do a little bit of research and that you do know. You can't be 100% spontaneous when it comes to the legalities of being in a country.
No, that's serious stuff. I don't know where our listeners are on this, but Liz and I are really not rebellious people. We are big fans of staying within the line and letter of the law. And the second you get anywhere near that edge, it becomes very hairy for both of us. And I think that's something that we really work hard at in terms of even being spontaneous people. Our spontaneity disappears very quickly when it comes down to things like visas and overstaying and making sure that we're legally in places and doing things the right way.
Yeah, completely. I think I'm a very spontaneous traveler in general, but I will never overstay a visa.
Yeah, but the other thing I was going to say on this point, because I think it's interesting, is I don't know how you feel about it, Liz, but sometimes when you haven't really been paying attention to how things are supposed to be done, and you turn up and you might need a specific form from a specific government office, and you walk in and you say, hello, I'm here for this form and whatever it is, and the person behind the desk turns around and looks at you and says, you haven't followed anything in terms of the process to get this piece of paper.
Yeah.
You were supposed to do this, and this 6 months ago, and now you want this piece of paper. And that sinking feeling in my heart, knowing that I was wrong because I didn't do that particular process, is a terrible, terrible feeling. And I really work hard to make sure that that's not who we are. Because when you get that information, when you get that news, sometimes it's like, yeah, well, you can't go on this trip. You can't have this thing.
Yeah.
And you have to look at yourself and say, well, I can't have this. I can't do this because I didn't follow the process. Ooh, that's not a nice place to be. Not a nice place to be. All right, Liz, tell me about Dreaming Debbie.
All right. So next up is Dreaming Debbie. And this person has always had a thing for one country. So no matter what in their life, they just can't shake that feeling of Paris or Italy or Bali or wherever from their mind. And they feel like their heart belongs in this place, and they are actually making their dream come true by moving there. They probably know a bit about this place, but they're not really focused on logistics. They're really focused on how they want to feel when they are there.
Ooh, that's interesting. Do you have any Dreaming Debbie in you?
I think that I did a little bit when I first moved to Australia. So when I was 12, there was this program that you could apply to, and they sent you to Australia. And I told my parents, like, I have to do this. Like, I'm going to Australia. This is what's going on. Like, I'm going to get it. Like, I'm going to apply. I'm going to get in, and let's do this. And my parents were a bit skeptical, but they let me apply. And I applied, and I took all the tests, and I got in. And then they sent the package of what you would need to pay to attend this program. And my parents were like, not a chance. Are we spending that much money to send you to Australia? Like, we don't have that money and this isn't happening. And I think I just had it in my head from then that one day I was going to go to Australia. One day I was going to go to Australia. One day. And I really
build it up. Did it build up for you?
Completely.
Okay.
And that when I got to Australia, it was going to be the best place in the world because I really had, like 8 years.
You were ready for it.
Childhood dream.
And when you did go to Australia, what was that like? Did it meet your expectations?
So when I went to Australia, the first time was for study abroad. So I was still in university and I did a semester in Sydney during my university degree. And I loved it. Okay. I really, really loved it.
That's super cool. That's really good to hear. It's always nice to hear when the expectation is met with the reality. That's really cool.
I also don't know anyone who did a study abroad semester and didn't absolutely love it though. So I think there's some kind of magic with that. It's a limited period of time. It's 3 months. You're 20. Sure. You are with all your friends. I think it's this amazing experience that isn't as much like an expat experience because it does feel much more sheltered, much more cushioned.
Like idealized kind of thing, sure.
And easy mode in a lot of ways because you've got your university, your housing is sorted out, your classes are sorted out.
Well, that's super cool though. I'm glad you had that. I had a different experience with Dubai.
We talked about that last week.
Yeah, no, it was not good. I had dreamt of Dubai being the land of milk and honey for me, and it was like the opposite. It was the land of poop, and I just really struggled, and it was not for me. And I have moved on to greener mental pastures. But
I didn't know that was your dream, that you had been dreaming about it.
I don't know if it was like an organic dream. I think something was planted in my head at some point saying that that's where I needed to be and that that's the best place to be. And I just believed it because I had no reason to not believe it. And that was until I actually went and realized this is really not for me. Like I'm not someone who naturally fits into the situation, the heat, the desert, the competitiveness in terms of professional life, all of those things. And I just kind of had that snap back to reality. And again, it's not to say that Dubai is a bad place. It's just not for me.
Yeah.
And it's so far off from the craziness that I had imagined in my head of what that place was supposed to be. And so I was very much a dreaming Debbie. So tell me about the good of dreaming Debbie, Liz.
Yeah, so I think the good is that following a dream is amazing, and to truly feel like you belong in a place is incredible. I've never truly felt that, where even in Australia, where I had a great time and I really loved it, I didn't feel, I belong here and I need to stay here forever. And I think for someone who has that dream and gets to that place and is like, yep, this fits like a glove. This is perfect. This is everything I hoped it would be. I think that is so amazing.
I'm really always so happy for those people. And especially when they get it right on the first try.
Oh, amazing.
Where it's like, no, I watched a movie when I was 12 about Japan, and that's always been a dream for me. And here at age 35, they managed to get things in order to move to Japan. They've landed, they've been there for 2 years, and they couldn't love it any more than they already do. And I'm like, man, that is someone truly living the dream.
Yeah.
It's such a cool thing. On the flip side, Liz, what's the bad?
Yeah, so I think that the bad, you get so caught up in the dream of a place that you fail to see the reality of it.
Yeesh.
There's good and bad of every place. And I think that you can get so caught up in how amazing and beautiful a place can be that you really do forget. For Australia, I think the hardest part for me was honestly just the fact that it's so far and that I could only visit my friends and family once a year.
Yeah.
And even though I was having a great time living there, knowing that I missed every birthday, every Christmas, every wedding, everything because I could only go home once a year, it was really difficult.
No, I could imagine. No, that's the thing is that it's not necessarily even a case of being negative. It's just more a case of accepting the harder realities of any place that you happen to be, because there always is going to be that downside or that hard side, that negative side. But I did want to ask you, have you felt, because I've felt this, I'm going to own up to it before I ask you to. I've met a lot of people who lie to themselves about when they live in a new place because of being dreaming Debbies.
Yeah.
Where they are, no, this place is amazing. This is the best food that I've ever had in my whole life. And it's like a bread roll with some very like supermarket butter on it. And they're like, no, man, we just don't have food like this where I'm from. And I'm like, dude, you come from a country where everything is slathered in butter. And you're saying that this like very, like even the local people are like, dude, this isn't the best, you know? Have you noticed that?
Yeah, I think that's the ugly is really this mix of the spontaneous and the meticulous uglies, in that you might feel like you cannot leave and you need to lie to yourself because this was the dream. And if you ever say that it's not, then what does that mean? And who are you? Because it's so tied to who you think you are.
It's such a deeply psychological question people have got, where they need to hold on to this dream, even though it's not real, because if it wasn't what they wanted it to be, they would then need to accept the fact that this isn't where they're supposed to be, or that this isn't how they're supposed to feel. And I find it so difficult sometimes to talk with a lot of those people, because a lot of their perspectives aren't based in reality. It's based on this idea of what things are supposed to be, even though it's not true or real. And so you find it hard sometimes to talk about the realities of the place, because they don't want to acknowledge that there are these bad sides to any country in the whole world.
Yep.
And that's really tough. We know this one person in Portugal. Honestly, you could give her a rock covered in moss and donkey poop, and she would tell you this is the best thing that she's ever seen in her whole life. Like, there is nothing that she's seen globally that is as good as this. And I look at it and I'm like, no, but that's just a rock covered in poop, bro. You know, it's not, I mean, this is a great place. We live in a great place, incredible place. But that in your hands right now is a rock covered in poop. Like, no, this is the best thing. And then you're like, no, well, okay, so we're not going to be able to have this conversation. Let's just move on.
I have another friend who will take 3 Portuguese pastries that are the exact same ingredients and are basically the exact same pastry, just like maybe a different shape.
Yeah.
And she will eat these 3 pastries and say, whoa, the diversity of Portuguese pastries is so amazing.
Yeah. Look, and that's the thing, is that like I also wanted to come across from our side of being like, there are great Portuguese pastries, but some of the pastries are very standard and copied. But then you've got these people who cannot accept the fact that there are bad things about where they are, who are like, no, that's the best thing that's
not
ever
even
been made.
Bad. I think there are people who can't accept that not everything they're experiencing is the best thing in the world.
So even middle ground.
Exactly.
Kind of stuff,
It can't even just be fine.
No. I think you're right. I think you're very right. Well, so that's Dreaming Debbie. We know too many Dreaming Debbies.
We really do.
Tell me about Professional Patty.
Okay, so we also know a lot of these. But a professional patty, this person has a goal and they will do whatever it takes to achieve it. She's following promotions, prestige, and professional growth. They know everything about tax breaks and visa rules, but probably aren't even ordering coffee in the local language because they are there for work. They moved to this country for a job. They are there to make money, make professional connections, and work.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a tough thing to watch too, if I'm honest. Just, I don't know, I think it maybe extends further than normal expat life, just to watching someone work their lives away, and then inevitably going through the burnout, and then discovering that time was lost and that they're really tired and that they're struggling for motivation. The normal cycle, like, it is not personal, it is not indicative of anyone's moral character or quality as a human being. It's just a trap that so many people fall into. And it's really hard to see it, especially when it's international, when so many more other experiences are available.
Yeah.
But they're being turned a blind eye to because work is number one.
Yeah. And the good is we're always encouraging a career chaser. And it's great to be able to follow your dreams at work. And there are a lot of people who, in the country that they're from, do not have the career opportunities that they would have if they were to move abroad. And moving abroad might be the only way for you to advance in your career.
Yeah.
And it's a great thing to have that opportunity and to be able to do it. But the bad is, I think that a lot of times these people really struggle to make local friends and get caught in that expat bubble because work is the only place that they're really living.
Yeah. It's always going to be about balance, isn't it? If you don't have that balance of how you're living your life, and it's not easy to find that balance.
No.
Honestly, it's not. But finding that balance is so essential to getting a holistic experience of whatever it is. Because eventually, even if you integrate into the new country that you're living in, you want to have a life that is holistic and balanced and fulfilled with different people, different experiences, more time, all of those kinds of things.
And then the ugly, I think that when you're there just for work, you can never really feel at home in a place because you don't really settle in. You probably feel disconnected. And I can't imagine that you don't feel a little bit lost as well. Because if work is the only thing that's tying you to this place, then you must feel quite a bit untethered.
Yeah, because your entire context is based on a working scenario.
Yeah.
So, the people that you have met from that country are colleagues. The food that you've eaten has come from Uber Eats to the office. You're smoozing with business partners and clients or whatever it might be in that work bubble as well. It's a tough place to be, I think.
And you might bring a family as well, and it makes it tough for them too, because I think that when someone comes for work and brings their family along, no one really knows how long they'll be there, and no one really knows how deep to make friendships or what to get involved in. And I think that there's a lot of discomfort there with, like you do have this home life and you do have this home in another country, but that uncertainty of, is this a place we want to stay? Because you didn't choose it for the place.
Yeah.
You chose it for the job.
For the job.
Which means that the next job is going to be the next move.
Yeah, it's tough, especially if you've got children, like you're saying, with families where should your child learn the local language if they're only going to be there for 2 years for the rest of their lives? Should your wife start making close friendships and relationships with other people?
What kind of job should she get?
What kind of work should she be looking for? How long are the kids going to be in school? It's hard. It's very hard. Wow. Okay. Well, one of my favorite names of all time here, Rhonda. Tell me about Runaway Rhonda.
So she had a tough life. Maybe something traumatic happened. And instead of a bold new haircut, Rhonda says, screw it, sets her life on fire and moves abroad.
I love those people. Those people are such a gas. Really, they are some of my favorite people to hang out with because they've just got this fire in their eyes of, I'm out here, I'm living, bro.
We've met so many of these people in Portugal.
So cool. Really, it's really, really cool.
And I think the good of this, the decision to move was 100% taking control of your own life. And I think that's amazing. The bad, I think that eat, pray, loving around the world can be very lonely.
Well, tell me this, Liz. We in this podcast we're talking about a lot of ladies, a lot of more mature ladies. Does it?
They're not necessarily mature. I just chose these names.
But no, I know that the characters themselves aren't actually old. But do you think that there is a difference between men and women in some of these things? So let's say with the Runaway Rhonda, that really stands out to me because you often see people in Portugal, in our town, who come across and they're recently divorced.
Yeah.
And so you would have a woman who's been married for 40 years and that relationship has ended and she's now going to put the keys in the ignition and live her life, and here she is.
Yeah.
And then you'll also have situations where you'll have an older gentleman who may have become a widower or has retired, and or his wife has left and the children are out of the house, and so he wanted something different for his life, and now that's why he lives in our town.
In Portugal, we're also seeing a lot of men who retire and move.
Yeah, it's like there's a lot, like we know in the tens or hundreds. That's how much it is, and we come from a very small town in Portugal. Do you feel as though there's any difference between men and women in this?
That's a good question. I think that not necessarily, because I think all of these personas are for men and women. But I really do think that I've seen a lot of men and a lot of women in the same position. And there's such a wide range of anger that they feel. I think maybe the men might have a bit more anger inside of them. And I think the women might be a bit more ready to release, a little bit more kumbaya.
I tend to think that most of the women who I've met who have left their original home and come to a new place are a bit more focused. They're obviously certainly a combination of the ladies that we're talking about, of the personas that we're talking about here. But they're a lot more focused on, I want to do this, I want to go there, I want to have this, I want to live this way. Whereas I think with a lot of the men that I've seen are generally quite a lot happier just to like bounce around town until, I don't know, something happens.
But I would say that for every one of these personas, I think that the women tend to be more of the planner. So when I was in university, I did a second semester abroad, both of them in one episode. So when I was in university, I also did a second semester abroad doing a program called Semester at Sea, which is a cruise ship that goes around the world and stops in a bunch of different countries for a week each. And it was about 70% women. And we asked someone about this. Why is it that so many more girls are signing up for this than boys? And really it came down to planning and preparation, because it was several months worth of documentation that you needed to submit for the application. And the people in charge said, you just get a lot of boys who will start the process and not finish it. And girls tended to be more planners.
Well, I would agree with that. I think even in our relationship, you are significantly more switched on when it comes to following process and getting administrative things done. And that makes actually a lot of sense to me, because I think it requires a certain level of organization to do certain things. And I think getting over, just in our situation, Portugal, getting over to Portugal requires that. And then even when you're in Portugal, you would be needing to be quite organized to do anything productive or interesting at the very least. And more ladies, I think, are willing to do that.
Yeah.
Oh, interesting point. Okay.
So back to the ugly of Runaway Rhonda. Running away from your problems, shockingly, does not make them go away. You are still going to have to deal with these problems, plus lots of new ones in your new country. And it might seem like life will be easy there, but the reality is that life is not going to be easy anywhere. And therapist Ryan, can you just talk to us a little bit about running away from your problems?
Moving to a new country is not going to get rid of the problems that you have in your life. It's just not. It might put them on ice. It might allow you to forget them for a short period of time. It might make you feel better in the short term, but those problems are not going to go anywhere. I'm saying it because I think a lot of people understand that when they move to a new country, it's a new leaf, it's a new page in the book, it's a new story. And that's very true. But you need to understand that a lot of those problems are part of who you are. They aren't who you are, but they're part of who you are.
Yeah.
They're part of what your life experience is. And you need to be able to work through those problems as well as starting that new chapter in your life. And it's really difficult sometimes with a lot of my clients is having the conversation with them where they're disappointed that they have all this momentum from starting this new existence in a new country, but the phone call home or the memories or the pain is still there, and they're disappointed, number one, that it's there, and we're needing to deal with the disappointment before we even start talking about this is something that you went through, this is something that's happening in your life, and we need to figure out a way to process this and understand it and think about it and feel about it.
Yeah. Yeah. And we're not saying don't run away to a new country. We're saying whatever you do, make sure that you've got the mental side of things covered as well, because your problems are not going away wherever you go.
I'll take it a step further and I'll say to you, the pressure and stress of moving to a new country is something that can actually make a lot of your psychological issues worse because of the amount of pressure and stress and anxiety that you're going to go through. So don't take that lightly.
Yeah.
Sure. All right. So Liz, tell me about lover Lainey. Oh, this sounds good.
So the lover Lainey personality met someone, did the long distance thing, and made the move to be with that person. And this can go lots of different ways. So it can be like us, someone met someone from another country and then moved to a third country. Or it can be someone who met someone like I did when we initially moved in together, was I met you and then I moved to South Africa to live with you.
Gosh, yeah. So do you see a lot of that, Liz?
Definitely. I think that it's become more common almost every year. And it's a combination of people moving to the country where their partner's from and people moving to third places now, like we did.
Yeah, we met outside of our home countries, and that was the start of our story. And when I look back at it, when I think back at that whole experience, I really do feel as though we really didn't give enough attention to the adjustment period of moving and living in different places as well as starting a relationship.
So I think this is the difficult part of moving somewhere for love. So the good, we love love, you get to be together, all of this is great. The bad, I think if you move to their country, you're moving into their space, their family, their friends, their life, and it can be really hard to feel like anything is yours. So those are all of the difficulties of moving to someone's home country. But I think that there's another whole set of difficulties when you move to a third place, because you need to both make new friends, find jobs, untangle the red tape of starting a life without a support system. And it's really just the two of you. So it's a totally different kind of pressure that you have when you're in this third place.
Gosh, it's really not something to be trifled with, eh? That reliance on each other. Like, I think that reliance on each other sometimes is a negative thing for a relationship, because the partner that you've chosen is now everything to you in every area. They're your best friend, they're your roommate, they're your potentially business partner, they're your travel friend, they need to take care of you in terms of medical stuff, they need to be there for you during administration. It's just like, it's full on.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people underestimate what you go through when you move to a new country on the relationship side of things, especially when you sometimes get situations. I mean, I think we went through this, and I guess it's a good time to share it, is that my adjustment to Portugal has been a lot more difficult than Liz's has.
Yeah.
Which has meant that Liz has needed to deal with me, cope with me, help me with so much more, because I've felt it more deeply and more negatively than she has. And I think that's really such a difficult thing when she hasn't felt the same way.
Yeah.
It's not as if both of us have struggled to adjust to a new country, and it's hard. It's hard.
Yeah, I think this is the thing, right? Like, the ugly is that it's going to be so much harder than you think it is, no matter what.
Yeah.
Because I think people can get really caught up in, I love this person and I'm so excited to go and live with them and we'll just figure it out. But no matter where you're moving, it's going to be hard.
And needing to deal with all the ups and downs of real life is something that you need to accept, eh? Yeah.
Our last persona, are you ready for Oopsie Olga?
I hope so.
So this person never planned to move abroad. They were going to do a short contract or maybe a working holiday visa or a long vacation in a place. And then they blinked and years have passed and they're still there. And this is also definitely me. When I first moved abroad, I was moving abroad for 6 months. I told my friends and family that I'd be back in 6 months. And that was 15 years ago.
That is something. What is the good about it?
So the good, you're staying because you like it. And this is a much less stressful way of moving because really you're making a small decision. You're taking one step. I think someone who has decided that they are going to move to this country and that is going to be where they live for the rest of their lives, they are making a huge leap. And moving somewhere for a couple of months or to see how it is, you're taking a step.
Yeah.
And a step just seems so much easier and less stressful.
Yeah, it's like more natural, I think. You don't have as much built up of something that's coming or what's at risk.
Exactly.
Or anything like that. No, that makes sense.
Yeah, when I was leaving, I definitely didn't know that I wasn't going to come back. I wonder if that's a function of age as well, because I left when I was 24. You left when you were 33.
Yeah, I mean, it's. I mean, I think it's quite a personal thing, isn't it? Like, it depends on where you are in your life. It depends on how you feel about your home. It depends on how you feel about where you're going. It depends whether you're emotionally available to take on something like changing countries. It's about understanding how you view home, what that means for you. It depends on where you're going in terms of what's available to you there on that side. What is community? So many of these really deep and serious questions. And I think for me, it was doing all of that at once. And I think for you, it was just one small step at a time.
Exactly.
And I also come from South Africa, which is really far away from every other place in the world. And so it's not as easy for me to jump on an airplane and go back home.
Yeah.
It's just not. And I don't have that readily available to me. If I'm in Portugal and I feel the need to eat my mom's cooking, that's like a 20-hour trip.
And it's a lot more expensive.
And it's a lot more expensive. Whereas for you, if you feel like eating New York pizza, you can get a direct flight from Lisbon to New York. You'll be eating that pizza the same afternoon.
Yeah, it's true.
So that's what I'm saying is that I think I don't know, I love you so much. I think a lot of people from the first world, as it were, don't really understand so much what it's like for people coming from the third world or developing nations.
Yeah.
Because expat life and immigration is a different experience. I don't want to say it's harder or easier because that's not fair on either side. But it is saying that there are a lot of considerations that people who come from less privilege have to go through in adjusting. And I think a lot of it is tough because when you're an immigrant, when you're classed as an immigrant, you're almost consumed by that experience of the loneliness, of the harrowing discrimination at times, as opposed to, I think, when you come from a nicer place, you're only dealing with some of those things.
I think you're right. I think it's a lot easier to be a white American who, oops, I've been gone for so much longer than I expected to, versus being someone from Africa who is making this decision to leave Africa. It is
So you'll never get an oopsie Ryan, because if Ryan oopsies and overstays his visa, someone's going to come knock on that door. You see what I'm saying? So oopsie isn't really available for people who look like me.
Yeah. So the bad of an oopsie is that friends and family will not understand. You were supposed to come back. When are you coming back? And I think this question kind of never ends.
I know for us in South Africa, the way that families are structured, the way that people understand life to work means that there is an expectation that you're going to come back at some point in time. It's not a permanent thing that you no longer live there.
Yeah.
It's just, oh, you're going out, you're doing that. He's got a nice job there, or he's doing well there. And then once that job is finished or something, or they've earned enough money, they'll come back to South Africa. And that's the reason why they ask that question.
And I think it's this idea of once they're ready to settle down, they'll settle down back in their home country.
Yeah. And I don't know, as I've gotten older, I'm a lot less judgmental of that perspective than I used to be. I do understand where people are coming from when they ask that question, primarily because since having left South Africa, I've actually come to discover so many things that I didn't appreciate about the place.
It's true. I think that happens all the time, right?
Yeah, and I have so many friends who left at the same time, a little bit before, a little bit after, who have like started great lives overseas in Europe and America and Australia and whatnot. And they've started these amazing lives. They've gotten married, kids, like good jobs, that kind of stuff. And it's taken so long now, but when we have those conversations, the idea of going back to South Africa becomes so much more of a possibility.
Yeah.
And they might not have plans to go back right now. They might not have plans in place at all, but they do entertain the thought of going back to that place. And that's not how they started.
Yeah.
And I'm nervous to say that I might be feeling the same way.
And the ugly, I think for an oopsie where you are just staying in a place longer than you expected to, I think there's a bit of an existential crisis of where you belong. I think you feel pulled in lots of directions and not necessarily like you belong at home anymore, not necessarily like you belong in this place that you've been and you've stayed because you didn't actively make that choice. And I think there is something about this feeling of I am moving to this place. This will be my home that makes you believe it yourself. And when you don't say that, maybe you don't feel it.
I think that's a existential crisis that really has an impact to change the way that you feel about your space, like where you are, like who you are, where you belong, like you're saying here. And it's a tough question to have to ask yourself because so many people don't need to ask themselves that question until they move away.
Exactly.
And now you're away and you're asking yourself that question for the first time and starting to understand your existence in a different way. And I think that's actually a really good thing for personal development because it forces you to acknowledge good things about yourself, bad things about yourself. It puts you in a position where you need to make decisions about what is it that really makes you happy. Where do you need to go to get those things to be happy? Is it in a new place? Is it where you're from originally? Is it altering the way that you're living right now in the place that you happen to be? It's such a big thing. And I think so many people spend a lot of time, understandably, avoiding asking themselves existential questions like that because these are hard.
Yeah.
And so when you're in a new place, especially when you're a bit of an oopsie girl, you're not really planning on asking yourself that question, but there you are sitting on public transport one cold winter's night and the McDonald's is the only thing that you can have for dinner. And you know, people who have been through this know this feeling.
Yeah.
It's just this stark moment of existence where it's really just you on planet Earth. And you're asking yourself those questions. Where am I? Why am I here? Why do I feel this way? Where am I going? Why am I doing this?
Yeah.
And when that wind blows over you, you'll learn so much about yourself, the good and the bad. And I think that's a bittersweet thing, eh? It really is.
Yeah. So to wrap it up, there is no best way to move abroad. And I just think we need to be as clear as we can about this. All of these personas and different ways that people are approaching this move, there's no way to do it to avoid the difficulties of starting life in a brand new place. And there's no way to move abroad that's going to be easy. So you just need to know that whatever path you choose, there are amazing things and there are hard things. So try to do your best. Make sure you get the right visa, but don't overplan it. Don't put all of your eggs in one basket. Allow yourself that flexibility to change if something isn't working. And yeah, we wish you the best of luck. All right. So you ready to play Would You Rather?
I'm ready.
Planning edition.
Okay.
Would you rather ship all of your belongings to a new country or start fresh and have to buy all new stuff?
That's actually a really good question. I don't know. I guess it depends on how long I'd be spending in each place.
Well, I mean, look at you. You are the one who feels like you're moving, like this is it, like this is the move.
Well, it's also, like, I mean, sorry, I'm laughing because it also, I guess, depends on like the quality of your stuff. Is it worth dragging across the planet? I mean, like for me, I mean, to be honest with you, most of my stuff could fit into the back of a very small SUV at the most. So maybe dragging it across the planet on a ship might not be a good idea. But if I have to choose, I'd say, I'd say I'd like to keep my stuff. I'll take it on a ship. I get attached to stuff. It's not a good thing about me, but it's true. You?
I'm getting all new stuff. I know that it's a waste of money. I know that it's a waste of money, but my stuff is all IKEA. And
so why don't you buy it? So
we're going to take it apart and it's not going to make it back together again because let's be real, it was the cheapest stuff that I could buy in the first place.
Is it because it was the cheapest stuff that you could buy in the first place, or because one of us isn't a fan of following the instructions? That's why we have extra bolts and shelves everywhere.
I can put IKEA furniture together so quickly because I don't even need to look at the instructions.
Which is why we have a lot of shelf-looking chairs in our house and table-looking cupboards. So.
But this is why my stuff is not going to make it in a move.
Okay, all right. No, I respect the answer there.
Also, I think that I don't get attached to stuff as much, and I don't really like expensive, nice things the way that a lot of other people do. So most of my stuff is the cheapest version of that thing.
Sure. So there isn't that emotional attachment.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
Okay. Would you rather be surprised by food being a lot worse than you expected, or Wi-Fi being a lot worse than you expected in your new country?
I feel as though Wi-Fi is more important to me these days for work. And I've also noticed a change in my own life where I'm actually happier and more eager to cook, full stop. Whether the food is nice in any particular area or bad in any particular area, I actually appreciate being able to cook at home because I get to make what I like and I'm able to turn it into something that makes me actually happy. And that's not what it used to be. So it stands out for me. It's not an answer that I might have given even a year ago, if I'm honest. You?
Yeah, I'm also going Wi-Fi. I think I need to work.
Yeah.
And I like to cook. So I'm able to deal with restaurants that I might not love as much, but I can't deal with Wi-Fi that doesn't work.
That's so frustrating. And the other thing that I'll say there is that, man, you know, we're very fortunate and privileged to be able to travel a lot. The prices of restaurant meals, from humble takeaways all the way to the most fancy places, people are charging way too much for food. The relationship between the price and value and quality of what food is being given to people at restaurants is absolutely bonkers. And I really am struggling to accept that. Standing there and sometimes being charged 18 to 25 euro for a hamburger.
Yeah, I just won't do it.
I can't do it because even if it's in line with the rest of the economy, which is what it is, I have trouble enjoying that burger because I know that that's how much money I paid for it.
And I know that I can cook a burger just as good at home.
Seriously. And you know, I'm sure that's going to change soon too. But for now, I'm happy to cook at home. Love it.
Last one. Would you rather sign a lease for an apartment that you saw online and now you have somewhere safe to land, or you land without a place and you have to find one once you're there?
So what's the practical thing here? So let's say you've landed without a place to stay. Mm-hmm. You're in an Airbnb for like how long? Or is it like on the day? I mean, that's a bit much.
No, so I think it's, are you going to pay for an Airbnb while you find?
I think so. I think I would take the Airbnb option because you're signing for a lease. Mm-hmm. A lease is a long-term legal agreement. And there's a lot associated in terms of risk, in terms of commitment, in terms of like quality. What are you going to get? So yeah, I would sign up for an Airbnb, sacrifice some money for that, but make sure that I get a place that I'm actually okay with living in. because if you sign up for something bad and you're trapped there, it's not a good place to be. What would you choose?
Yeah, I agree completely. I think that you can see something online and it can look perfect.
Wide angle lenses.
But in so many ways, it could be AI.
Yeah.
These days, it could be AI just completely altering all of those photos. And I don't want to sign up to live for anything more than a week or two in a place that I haven't actually spent time in and seen. Sure. Just walked around that place. Like, what's the neighborhood like? What does it feel like? I think these things are so important to me. And yeah, I don't think I could ever sign a lease for a place that I saw online only.
But anyway, folks, thank you so much for listening to us this week. We've really had a good time sharing with you. It's always so fun to talk about these things and reflect on our experiences and try to understand what other people have gone through as well. If you've got anything that you'd like to share with us, please, we'd love to hear. You can send us a DM on Instagram at expatslisten, or you can send us an email at expatslisten@gmail.com. It's always so good to hear from listeners. You guys make us so happy when you connect with us. If you can, please leave a review, leave some stars for us, subscribe. It makes a real big difference to the success of the podcast, and we'd really appreciate it if you did that for us. And until next time, have a good week. Bye-bye.